So tell us, and it's not secrets of success, but tell us about the family that you grew up in and how they motivated you, and then the parts of your character that helped you to get you to where you are today.
Yeah, the first thing is my parents were very hardworking growing up. When I mean hardworking, I mean my dad would take 3 days off a year, right? Thanksgiving, Christmas Day, and New Year's Day.
What kind of business was he in?
Architecture. And building buildings and also developing. Very difficult business, obviously, once 2008 hit and that kind of whole market got uprooted. But I grew up seeing my dad always be there for every single sporting event, be there for anything I needed. But he'd come home for dinner, then he'd go back to work till 1 o'clock in the morning. And then he'd wake up at 7 a.m. You know what it's like to build a business. And so that was the culture I was raised in. And I was also, obviously I'm very, active, and I have trouble sitting still. And my parents, to their great credit, anytime anyone would be like, oh, Charlie has trouble sitting still in class, they're like, you know what?
Perfect.
That'll end up being a positive. No medication.
Perfect.
No counselor.
And it's a shame that our educational system doesn't recognize this.
When we first started Turning Point, and my parents instilled this in me as well, which was that entrepreneurial approach too, which is take risks, think big. I was always taught that this country was a place to be able to do impossible things. And young people ask me all the time, Charlie, how'd you start this? I started it. One of the things that, I always laugh, and I don't mean to insult anyone watching this, when people say, yeah, I went to college to study entrepreneurship.
That's funny. I'm often asked, or I was years ago, asked to give lectures at very famous institutions, to give lectures on entrepreneurship. And I would go and I would tell them about my story. But in the back of my mind, what I really wanted to say is, if you're sitting here, you're not an entrepreneur.
That's the whole point.
Right. If you're sitting here, you're not.
And so people say, well, Charlie, what are the steps? I say, steps. Yeah. I said, you think I had a plan when I started? I had a skill and a passion. That was it. And you just kind of start. They say, well, did you have a detailed business plan? I said, what are you talking about, a detailed business plan? I said, I might have had like a pitch deck 2 years later to go raise some money from somebody.
Right.
But
not initially.
No, I mean, initially. And even, this as a creator, you're always changing things, right? You're looking at
flexible.
It's one of
you
the
have to be ready to change.
You have to be agile.
Right.
And then also the other thing, taught, growing up through sports and other ways was perseverance as well, which is a very important thing, which, that's a tough thing to instill in somebody, other than if you have parents that are willing to tell you no, and willing, after you lose a sports game, be like, yeah, well, you should
try harder.
Yeah, exactly. And all of a sudden that instills in you this kind of hunger to want to be the best. And because this, starting something from nothing, there's a lot of opposition that will come your way. And I just don't mean opposition, people that shake you down. That comes after success. I mean that in opposition in your own head, right? Can I do this? Is this really the right idea?
Right.
Should I be doing something else? And so those are some of the values that I was raised with.